Hello and welcome. My name is Matthew Greer. Today we're going to be talking about the vestibular apparatus. This is a lecture designed for a human anatomy and physiology class. This is through Bio 515, Concepts of Human Physiology, through Grand Canyon University. My instructor is Dr. John Tassone. And let's jump into the vestibular apparatus. Let's talk about why it's important, what it does, what happens if it doesn't work correctly. Let's jump right in. What is the vestibular apparatus? The vestibular apparatus is located inside of the skull. This is the ear here. As we go inside, we have these different bones here, the incus malleus, the stapes, and then your tympanic window, and then inside of here, this right here, these three semicircles are part of it, and then this right here, this otolith organs are inside of here, the cochlea is in here, and then the cranial nerve that's carrying all this information is leaving out the backside here. So what the vestibular apparatus does for us is it provides our sense of equilibrium. It helps kind of this nice, like, letting you know where you are in space. It coordinates your head movements with your eyes and your posture and makes sure all three of those things are aligned. There's two main structures. There's these semicircular canals here on the top of it. And inside of here, like we spoke earlier, there's this otolith organs. And we're going to talk about each of those in greater detail later. So these semicircular canals, you can see the cochlea here on the backside of this. There's three of these guys. They detect rotational and angular acceleration. The reason there's three of them is they're giving this 3D kind of picture on which way your head is moving. We have these ampulla, which are these kind of little bumps areas here. And this is where the actual hairs are located for these guys. So inside of these semicircular canals, we have fluid, this endolymph. So acceleration of the head from not moving to moving, or deceleration of slowing down, or negative acceleration, moves this endolymph around in here. And this happens at least in one of three semicircles, depending on which direction your head is moving. Depends on which semicircle you're actually moving this fluid around in. And the movement of the fluid is going to happen in the opposite. So if you move your head to the left, your right, my left, it will go the other way. Like you can see in this kind of graphic here. As that head is tilting down, this fluid is moving the other way. Inside of these ampulla, we have vestibular hair cells, and this is a picture of one hair cell right here. They will have one kinocilium here, this really long one, and then they'll have 20 to 50 microvilli, which we call stereocilia, and they're arranged kind of like pipes on an organ. They're going from like high to low, and they're attached to each other via the tips here. So the tips are all attached all the way up to this kinocilium here. They are going to polarize or hyperpolarize based on the direction that they move. So if these stereocilia move towards the kinocilium, they are going to depolarize, and if they move away, they're going to hyperpolarize. And this gives your brain information on how it's moving. These signals are going to travel through the cell. They're going to go through this afferent sensor neuron, down to the vestibular auditory nerve, and down to the brain, where it's going to kind of make sense of the signal and tell you which way your direction your head is moving, where you're oriented in space. It's very important for posture. It's very important for eyesight. All of this information about where you are lets you make decisions on where you want to go. The otolith organs, the second part of this vestibular apparatus, they provide information about where your head is related to gravity. Is gravity straight down? Is it like tilted back? And there's two organs inside of this. There's the utricle and the saccule. And these guys are situated between your cochlea and your semicircular canals here. They're right smack dab in the middle. And they rely on calcium carbonate crystals called otoliths. Now, auto means ear, and if you break down lith, that is stone. So otolith means ear stone. And that's exactly what these guys are, little stones inside of your ears. The function of these guys for the otoliths in the utricle, at standing position, you're standing straight up and down. These hairs are going to be straight up and down, vertically. In the saccule, they would be horizontally. They would be more like this, with those big kinociliums and then the little stericiliums beside them. When you tilt your head differently than normal, these otoliths, these heavy parts, are going to lean towards that direction of tilt due to gravity. And this is going to either hyperpolarize or polarize these kinocilium there. And this also like as you move sideways from side to side, it will do the same thing. As you start to move, these guys, because they are heavier, because they have more inertia, heavier objects take more energy to get moving, they're more likely to stay at rest due to Newton's laws. They will lag as you start to move, and then they will catch up. And the same thing when you stop, they will lag, and then they will catch up, and they will stop as well. Because they're a little bit heavier, they have more inertia, they're harder to start getting moving and harder to stop getting moving. Now, as long as everything goes right, you're not going to experience any kind of, symptoms or anything like that. You're going to have just normal day-to-day life. You can go about your life. You know where your head's at. You know where it's located. You know which, if you're, looking down, if you're looking up. You have this kind of automatic sense of what's going on around you. It's a big part of your balance. In motion sickness, this balance that you have is somehow disrupted. And motion sickness is more likely in women and children. And there are some studies out there with twins that genetics may play a role. This can occur as people are on car trips, on boats, doing that swaying back to back during flight. A new common cause of motion sickness that we're seeing is due to virtual reality. People in VR headsets are getting a lot more motion sickness. Symptoms of motion sickness can be fatigue, dizziness, all the way up to vomiting in severe cases. And this is caused between inconsistencies between your different parts of your balance. Now you have your visual part, what you can see. You have a vestibular part, which is what we're talking about, where you have this natural kind of, your body's in one orientation. And you have your proprioception, or this kind of like sense of where you are in space. Now, if you mix or disrupt any two of these, let's say you're in a VR headset and your vestibular says that you have your head tilted, but your headset looks like you're still straight, that would give you this inconsistency that we see. And if you were motion sickness prone, you would probably get motion sickness under those circumstances. Next up, we're going to talk about Menieres disease, which is a disease affecting this vestibular apparatus. There's no 100% determined cause for this. There's lots of different factors at play. It may be genetic. It may be as the result of a viral or bacterial infection. It usually affects older individuals, and it usually only affects one ear. And symptoms of this Menieres disease involve vertigo, ringing in the ears, and hearing loss. And what happens is inside of this vestibular apparatus, you have swelling because of backed up endolymph. You have a fluid imbalance, you have swelling and extra pressure in the head. Because of this, you're getting distorted information from these semicircular canals, from these otoliths, and it also affects your ability to hear. With this hearing loss and this ringing in the ears, the swelling is creating some difficulties there. A lot of the ear in this cochlear here has those hairs inside of it that are sensing it. Extra endolymph, extra fluid, means that those aren't going to work like they normally do. And anytime you have pressure inside of the head, it's not usually a good thing. I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of the vestibular apparatus. If you want to dig deeper into this, Autoliths here with Hain T is a really good resource for looking into that saccule and getting a little deeper into there. There's some great information in this one about motion sickness and what's going on there, and some really cool studies coming out. That's the one with the twins that I was talking about. Menieres disease, there's lots of information there. And then there's lots of information about just how the whole system works and the actual anatomy and physiology inside of your text. So hopefully you learned something. Have a great rest of your day.